In our number 10 spot today we have Claude, Maurice, Marcel, Vorelhan, or Rael. Rael is a French journalist who is also the founder of what is called the Raelian movement, which is a UFO cult. Apparently Rael had some sort of extraterrestrial encounter in December of 1973, and this is what led him to found this movement. Rael says that during his alien encounter, the alien told him that he was the chosen one and he needed to spread the message to the people on Earth. This UFO cult believes that humans were created by an alien species, and once we find a way to find peace on Earth, those aliens will come down and tell us our true origins and bring us to utopia. In our number 9 spot today we have Marshall Applewhite. Marshall and his former partner Bonnie Nettles were responsible for founding the cult called Heaven's Gate. If you haven't heard of it before, these two believed themselves to be something called walk-ins, which they said are higher beings who took control over the bodies of two middle-aged human bodies so as to spread their word and teach humanity. Crazy thing is, there are people who believed it, unfortunately, because they were manipulated and taken advantage of. They gave up their lives and all worldly possessions in the belief that Earth was to be recycled, and the only way to continue surviving would be to leave immediately. The time to leave Earth came in March of 1997 when Marshall claimed that they had a spacecraft that was traveling to the comet Hale-Bopp. The catch with this spacecraft, however? Well, Marshall told them that they all needed to stage taking their own lives in order for the UFO to take them to, quote, another level of existence above humans. 39 members of the cult, including Marshall himself, took their lives over the course of a few days. This is the largest event of its kind, next to the Jonestown Massacre. In our number 8 spot today we have Ernest Norman. Ernest and his wife Ruth are credited with being the founders of what is called Unarius, which is an acronym for Universal Articulate Interdimensional Understanding of Science. This group believes in immortality of the soul and that all beings have been reincarnated many times. They also believe that in the past the solar system was the home to an ancient interplanetary civilization, and that aliens are human beings who have lived on Earth as well as other planets, even those outside of our solar system. These aliens are said to be advanced, intelligent beings that exist on higher frequency planes. These aliens are more advanced than humans both spiritually as well as scientifically. The group is definitely best known for their predictions of UFOs landing on Earth, but they are also known for their, quote, spiritual teachings. In our number 7 spot today we have L. Ron Hubbard. Scientology is a set of beliefs and practices that were invented by L. Ron Hubbard, and it has been variously defined as a cult. The core belief of this group is that humans are immortal and that our bodies are essentially just a shell to house us. Prior to landing in our human shells, however, this cult believes that our souls belonged to other extraterrestrial lives and that this life here on Earth is just one of many. Of course, that part in the text is only released to you once you spend $200,000 on the cult. This group is quite controversial, not only for the beliefs of the group, but because of their illegal activities that also occur, like fraud or spying on the government. There have been numerous Superior Court judgments that have not only called this group a dangerous cult, but also a manipulative profit-making business as well. In our number 6 spot today we have Vinnie O. Vinnie is a person who thankfully doesn't run a terrifying cult, and is rather a person who is aspiring to be an alien. Vinnie has spent thousands and thousands of dollars on cosmetic procedures in order to achieve this alien look, and is even trying to have surgery in order to completely remove their genitals. They want to be completely sexless and even go as far as to remove their nipples and belly button. Vinnie explains that when they first moved to Los Angeles, they saw everything around them was about sex and beauty, and they just didn't want to be a part of that world. They wanted to be separate from the crowd and embrace unattractiveness and shun sexual objectification, which is why they chose a genderless alien as their muse. In our number 5 spot today we have Dorothy Martin. The Seekers, also called the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, were a group who were a part of a UFO religion that existed in the Midwestern United States in the mid-20th century. This group was originally organized by a man named Charles Laffhead, but was led by Dorothy Martin, who was often referred to as Sister Thedra. She believed that a UFO was coming to save them all from a catastrophe on December 21st, 1954, and this cult is often thought to be one of the earliest UFO religions. Of course, the UFO did not come, and while this made some members quite skeptical, others began to believe that they just had had to wait a few more days until Christmas Eve rolled around. When the second incident was a failure as well, this caused many people in the group to begin turning their backs to this religion, which is likely one of the reasons the group and its beliefs dissipated. In our number 4 spot today, we have Philip K. Dick. Philip is certainly best known for his science fiction writings, as he is the author of 44 novels and 121 short stories, but his stories might have been influenced by what was going on in his own personal life. Fellow writer Brad Steger discussed how Philip had written to him in the late 70s to say that he thought he might be what is referred to as a star person. The idea of star people goes back long before our New Age ideas, and it is actually often attributed to a belief that comes from Indigenous Americans, but of course this idea has been taken and modified to fit into our modern world. The idea is essentially that star people are these sort of alien-human hybrids, and this modern version of it was introduced by Brad Steger. He suggests that certain people originated as extraterrestrials and they arrived on Earth either through birth or as a quote-unquote walk-in to an existing human body. As I mentioned before, Philip wrote Brad suggesting that he believed he may be one of these people, which just might explain the varied philosophical and social questions that can be seen in his writings. In our number 3 spot today, we have George Van Tassel. George is a man who, in 1947, moved to Giant Rock near Landers in the Mojave Desert in California, and this is where he established a UFO center. Basically, he was a founding member of a UFO religion, and he was interested in collecting and analyzing UFO phenomena and interviewing people who had claimed to be contacted. In 1952, George began claiming that he received a message via telepathic communication, and that these messages were coming from an extraterrestrial called Ashtar. And not only this, but he also claimed to receive messages from people who had passed, such as Nikola Tesla, famous alien himself. George would also interpret the Christian Bible as a sort of alien intervention in the evolution of humans, and by this I mean he claimed that Jesus himself was an extraterrestrial. To receive these messages, George claimed that he was using a blend of human capabilities as well as the use of an allegedly advanced form of alien technology. Of course, this technology wasn't for everyone, it required the right person with proper training and proper meditation techniques. In our number 2 spot today, we have Maxine Dietrich. In the early 2000s, Maxine created the Joy of Satan Ministries, which is an esoteric occult organization that advocates for, quote, spiritual Satanism. This is basically said to be a combination of theistic Satanism, Gnostic paganism, Western esotericism, UFO conspiracy theories, and extraterrestrial beliefs. A lot going on there. Members believe Satan to be, quote, the true father and creator god of humanity, whose desire was for his creations, humanity, to elevate themselves through knowledge and understanding. Basically, at the core of this belief is the idea that there was some sort of ancient conflict between advanced extraterrestrial races and humans on Earth. They also believe that Satan is an alien, and he was able to create Earth humans from some sort of advanced genetic engineering. Aside from these already out there ideologies, are way more insane and extremely harmful beliefs as well. All in all, this is just one belief system that would probably be best to just stay far, far away from. In our number 1 spot today, we have Heidi Fitko Garth. This is the person who is credited with founding a religious movement that is known as the Atman Foundation. This movement was active mainly on an island in the Canary Islands as well as in Germany. This movement received quite a bit of media attention in 1998 because of a huge scare that occurred. Basically, there were 32 members of this sect that believed they were going to be collected by a spacecraft and taken to a new, unspecified location on another planet. Failing this plan, however, the members were going to take their own lives. This is definitely quite a strange group, and it's unclear if they still exist or not, but hopefully not, considering the spacecraft they were all waiting for likely never came.
Starting off this countdown, we have cardiovascular disease. So obviously you can get heart disease here on Earth, but turns out that astronauts are more susceptible to it. Even if they went into space completely healthy with no heart problems, they could still develop cardiovascular disease. In fact, those that went on space missions have a 4 to 5 times higher rate of dying by cardiovascular disease. Scientists are still trying to pinpoint exactly what causes it. It may be that the astronauts' exposure to radiation is more severe than we thought. So in space, the cells lining your blood vessels are more vulnerable and therefore get more damage from the harsh conditions in space. In fact, scientists scientists are warning astronauts that future trips to Mars will shorten their lifespan greatly. In our 9th spot, we have space hitchhikers, and I'm not talking about humans that want to hitch a ride to space. We're talking about pathogens that astronauts carry with them on their missions. They might feel completely fine before launching, but space greatly lowers their immune system. Not only that, but space actually increases their virulence and growth, so it becomes stronger and could spread more easily. One test was done on staph, salmonella, and E. coli. They found that these bacteria reproduced more rapidly in space flight conditions. This is very problematic because it leads to increased risk of contamination and serious infection while in space. In fact, in 2006, NASA sent salmonella into orbit aboard the space shuttle Atlantis. The astronauts on board grew salmonella in space. When the shuttle returned to Earth, they infected mice with the salmonella and found that the salmonella from space killed mice faster than salmonella cultures grown on Earth. Isn't that insane? In our 8th spot, we have space disease. Going to space impacts astronauts both physically and psychologically. In fact, being in space has been known to cause a number of mental disorders, including anxiety and mood disorders. NASA thoroughly tries to prepare astronauts for space, but sometimes astronauts still get affected by the different conditions and being so isolated for so long. Like one second you're on Earth with gravity and the next you're shot full speed into a place with no gravity that could easily kill you. So yeah, that definitely is going to affect your body and brain health. A number of astronauts have returned home and developed severe anxiety, depression, and personality disorders. It's very sad and something that NASA hardly talks about. Moving on to number 7, we have the extraterrestrial sources. In the 1979 book Diseases from Space, authors and astronomers Fred Howell and Chandra Wickramasinghe claim that many of the common diseases that affect us actually have their origins in space. These include the flu, the common cold, and whooping cough. Of course, research is still ongoing to see if this is really the case. For example, they apparently took samples of cosmic dust and gas clouds, and they found that they had a match for desiccated bacteria, the bacteria found in influenza and other illnesses. However, their study was met with great criticism and many don't believe their findings. In our 6th spot, we have moon dust. The moon is actually a very deadly place, not only because it's hundreds of thousands of miles away from Earth, but because of its dusty surface. The moon's surface is filled with lunar dust, which are very tiny and sharp toxic particles. The particles are 50 times smaller than a strand of human hair, and if inhaled, it can stay in your lungs for months. The longer the particles stay in your lungs, the more dangerous it is. When the Apollo astronauts returned from the moon, they had moon dust all over their spacesuits. It made their throats sore and eyes water. The particles are so fine but are sharp like glass, so it felt like they were constantly breathing in sharp pieces of glass. Long-term exposure can destroy lung and brain cells. It can cause lung disease or weaken your immune system, which can lead to a number of other diseases, which is why astronauts are very careful about not getting moon dust on their suit, and if they do, they have to decontaminate themselves. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the disease on Mars. A number of scientists are worried about the colonization of Mars, if it even does happen. Why? Because there's still a lot we don't know about this big red planet. For starters, they believe that there could very well be single-celled organisms living underground. If we go to colonize Mars, that means we would have to tap into the planet's subterranean resources. By doing so, this could release some unknown germ or bacteria. And as I mentioned before, bacteria in space is more serious and spreads faster. In our 4th spot, we have the Apollo missions. In 1968, during the Apollo 7 mission, Commander Wally Schirra came down sick with a head cold only 15 hours after launch, which was a nightmare. Without gravity, mucus can't just drain out of your nose, so he was suffering really badly, and blowing your nose only makes it worse. Shortly after, it spread to his colleagues aboard the shuttle. Then in 1970, with the Apollo 13 mission, a number of astronauts got UTIs. In fact, Fred Hazy's UTI turned into a kidney infection. Basically, all sicknesses or diseases in space are horrifying. 1. They spread super fast. 2. They impact astronauts twice as much, which can lead to other serious health complications. And 3. There's no serious medical treatment that they can receive while in space. Moving on to number 3, we have the toxic fungus. Turns out that when spacecrafts return from space, they're often covered in space fungi. On top of that, there are fungi living all over the International Space Station. The study done on the fungi has determined that it is Aspergillus flavus, which is known to produce carcinogenic and immune-suppressing compounds. This fungi is known to form when it is stressed, and obviously space is a very stressful situation. So it's the perfect environment for it to thrive. Scientists are currently studying the toxic effects that it has on astronauts and what diseases exposure to it can cause. In our second spot, we have Disease X. This is the name given to an unknown disease that space could be harboring. According to new research from scientists in Canada, Spain, and the US, and I quote, "Every day more than 800 million viruses are deposited per square meter above the planetary boundary layer. That's 25 viruses for each person in Canada." Which is insane. If this is the case, then chances are there's an unknown disease out there that hasn't come to Earth yet. Maybe this disease is unlike one that we have ever encountered before. We won't know until it hits us. And in our number one spot today, we have Solipsism syndrome. Solipsism syndrome is a mental disease that affects astronauts who stay in space for a prolonged period of time. It's described as a disease in which a person feels like the world outside of their mind is no longer real. The prolonged period of isolation and different conditions in space contributes to the astronauts feeling this way. It has unfortunately affected a number of astronauts, and it took a while before scientists figured out what was going on and actually gave a name to this syndrome and acknowledged that it was real. However, they still don't know how they can prevent astronauts from developing this or how to help cure astronauts with this. Starting off this countdown, we have the Boomerang Nebula. The Boomerang Nebula is located 5,000 light years away in a large constellation in the southern sky. But don't even think about going there. I mean, just imagine that you did have the capabilities to. But anyways, if humans somehow got there, they would instantly be turned into a human popsicle. Yes, this place is the coldest place in the entire universe as far as we know. The temperature is negative 458 degrees Fahrenheit. For reference, the coldest place on Earth is negative 133.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's Antarctica. So yeah, this place is freezing. There's no way you could get there safely without freezing to death. Coming in at number 9, we have Exoplanet HD189733b. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure you hit that thumbs up button because it really helps us out. This planet would take your life the second you step foot on it. First off, its wind is incredibly strong. It blows up to 5,400 miles per hour. That's 7 times the speed of sound. You just end up being spiraled around the planet until you die. But if you somehow survive that, then you definitely wouldn't survive its rainstorms. Apparently its rain feels like shards of glass. So you'll get sliced up from it. Happy travels. In our 8th spot, we have the Pulsar star PSR B125712. This star is a collapsed core from an exploded star, and it's surrounded by 3 zombie planets. Yeah, NASA actually refers to them as zombie planets. What happens if you get too close to the star and its planets, you ask? Well, according to NASA, and I quote, "This undead star spins twin beams of radiation that could incinerate a spaceship foolish enough to come too close." NASA continues on by saying, "If you were to land on one of its orbiting planets, you would find sickly irritated auras to light up your certain death." So there you go. Cancel your summer plans, no one's going there. Moving on to number 7, we have HD80606b. Here we have a gas giant. Now this planet looks creepy with its blood red flamey surface. Seriously, looks like a planet from hell. In fact, it's got some hell-like temperatures. The temperature can go from 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 500 degrees Celsius, to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 1,200 degrees Celsius. It can get that hot in a matter of hours. And guess what? Its nights are actually hotter than its days. It's completely weird. Some even say going on that planet would feel like getting blasted alive with a blowtorch. So that's always fun, right? Coming in at number 6, we have RxJ1347. I'm just gonna call it RxJ for short. So RxJ is a massive galaxy cluster surrounded by a gas cloud in the constellation Virgo. It's around 5 billion light years away from the solar system, and it's considered the hottest place in the universe. that we know so far. It's thought that this was created as a result of two galaxy clusters colliding. Now, guess how hot this place is? Seriously, take a wild guess. Comment down below. Done? Well, it's 100 million degrees Celsius. Another source said that it's up to 3 million degrees Celsius. Needless to say, that is burning hot. It could melt you in a second. In less than a second. Yikes. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Boötes Void. This is considered one of the spookiest places in the cosmos. It's also referred to as the Great Nothing. Now, doesn't that sound like a place you want to visit? It gets its name because it's one of the largest known voids in the universe. In fact, it's also called the Super Void. It was discovered by astronomer Robert Kirshner back in 1981. It's located in the constellation of Boötes, hence its name. And it is massive. It's about 330 million light years in diameter. That's approximately 0.27% of the diameter of the observable universe. Yeah, it's an incredibly big void. But it's still unknown how voids are present and being formed. But it's best that we just stay far away from them as possible. Moving on to number 4, we have Venus. Yes, a planet in our solar system that you really shouldn't visit. Bam, there goes my weekend plans. Anyways, so the farther planets are away from the sun, obviously the cooler they get. Well, that's not the case for Venus. It may be behind Mercury, but it is definitely way hotter than Mercury. In fact, it's the hottest planet in our solar system. Basically, its dense atmosphere traps all the heat in. As a result, the temperatures reach 880 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 471 degrees Celsius. It's hot, hot. Spacecrafts that have landed there have only survived for a couple of hours before being completely destroyed by the heat. So imagine what would happen if humans took a step on that planet. Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. Moving on to number 3, we have Gliese 1214b. This is another planet that could cook you alive. So it was first discovered in December of 2009, and it's located 42 light years away from Earth. Now, this planet is super weird. Despite it being super hot, 200 degrees Celsius, which is 392 degrees Fahrenheit, the planet is made up of water. But you think with that heat, the water would just evaporate. Well, its high atmospheric pressures stop its water from boiling. I should mention that the pressure is so strong, it could crush our bones if we went there. Now, in fact, its water isn't what we know as water. Theirs is more like this thick, hot ice. It's quite weird. Coming in at number 2, we have Jupiter. Jupiter, our solar system's massive gas giant. First, can we just talk about how big Jupiter is? It's 2.5 times more massive than all the other planets in the solar system combined. Compared to Earth, its mass is 318 times as massive as Earth. Now, on to visiting Jupiter. Well, if you do want to go there, guess what? It doesn't have a solid surface, so you would kind of just fall right through and bye-bye. On top of that, you would be frozen by its temperature, which is negative 162 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 108 degrees Celsius. And to top it all off, you'd be exposed to very deadly radiation. And I'm pretty sure your head would just explode from its pressure. So, yeah, have fun visiting Jupiter. And in our number 1 spot, we have the black holes. Black holes scare the crap out of me. Seriously, just imagine Earth getting swallowed up by one. I know, it's highly unlikely, but still. Anyways, a black hole is a point in space where gravity is so strong that nothing around it can escape. Not even light. NASA states the gravity is so strong because matter has been squeezed into a tiny space. So if you went into space looking for one and got sucked into it, then you would be subjected to something called spaghettification. Basically, the gravity in the black hole would stretch you out like spaghetti. I mean, I love spaghetti, but I don't want to be turned into a human noodle. No thank you. So let me explain this process. Let's say you were headed feet first into the black hole. Your feet are physically closer to the black hole, so they would feel a stronger gravitational pull than your head would. So your feet are being pulled further in, which is stretching your body. Now your arms, because they aren't at the center of your body, would cause your body to be pulled inwards, making you appear super thin. So basically, if we did get sucked into a black hole, we would all be compressed and elongated, looking like human noodles. It's terrifying.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have time travel. The first large-scale image to be publicly released that was taken by the James Webb Telescope was a mega deep sky image of a galaxy cluster called SMACS0723, which sits over 5 billion light years away from us. The reason this cluster is so profound is because it offers us a glimpse into the early universe. This cluster, despite only being a couple 100 million light years across, which in the cosmos really isn't a large space at all, still is the home to thousands of galaxies. But if you look even closer at the image, you can see even more. In between these galaxies are twisting and arcing bands of light, which are even more distant galaxies, but their light is being distorted as it passes through this dense cluster of galaxies. Some of these galaxies are the oldest ever observed, some over 13 billion years old, and this is important because we don't yet know fully how galaxies formed in the early days of the universe, and James Webb is helping us put those puzzle pieces together. In our number 9 spot today, we have the complex galaxies. In with these distant galaxies comes a realization about their structures. Some of these galaxies are far more complex than astronomers had once expected. In a study into the deep field image, researchers found a surprisingly high number of distant galaxies that are shaped like disks. Basically, while using Hubble, scientists believed or had a theory that early galaxies were often more distorted by their interactions with neighboring galaxies, and that these distant galaxies were more irregularly shaped than ones nearby, which, not unlike the Milky Way, are normally more regularly formed in the shape of disks. This changed though with the Webb observations, because this telescope revealed that there are up to 10 times as many distant disk-shaped galaxies than what was previously thought. According to some experts, because of the fact that this contradicts what was once thought about the evolution of galaxies, that much more research needs to be put into this specifically to figure out exactly what this means and how it changes our theories moving forward. In our number 8 spot today, we have cosmic noon. Moving on a little later into galactic evolution, one study into Webb's observations focused on cosmic noon, which was a period approximately 3 billion years after the Big Bang. It is an important period because of the fact that this is the time when star formation peaked in the universe and the most light was created. An astronomer at the University of California, Santa Cruz named Ren Seuss examined images taken by both Hubble and Webb of galaxies at cosmic noon, and this is when Ren realized something. The infrared wavelengths detected by Webb showed that the massive galaxies looked significantly smaller than they did in the Hubble images. Of this discovery, Seuss said, quote, "It potentially changes our whole view of how galaxy sizes evolve over time. Based on Hubble images, it was thought or suggested that galaxies start out small and grow larger over time, but these Webb images are showing that maybe this isn't the case and that things might be a little more complicated than anticipated." In our number 7 spot today, we have the exoplanet atmosphere. While there are many tasks that the James Webb will be taking on through its career, one of them is to study alien exoplanets, most especially to figure out what their atmospheres are made of. To do this, when the exoplanet passes in front of its parent star, the light from the star, of course, passes through the planet's atmosphere before continuing onto its journey wherever. Whatever the atmosphere is made up of, whatever the elements are, it changes the nature of the light, and this is something that James Webb can pick up on. WASP 96b is an exoplanet that we've had our eye on for a while now, and it is a giant gassy planet that orbits close to its parent star, and now it is being used to test Webb's abilities before moving on to more challenging targets, such as Earth-like planets that orbit sun-like stars. There are a few incredible discoveries that Webb has made in doing this, like the first detection in an exoplanet atmosphere of sulfur dioxide, and new readings are even revealing signs of active chemistry within the atmosphere. This is all to say that these tests are yielding incredible results, which is extremely promising when it comes to the future and the understanding of exoplanets. In our number 6 spot today, we have star formation. People who are busy studying galactic chemistry have been receiving some more complicated and interesting data from Webb. One analysis examined light emitted by galaxies that had a redshift of 5 or greater. In this analysis, they found a surprising richness in elements like oxygen. This is important because astronomers had thought that the process of chemical enrichment, which is the process where stars fuse hydrogen and helium in order to form heavier elements, they thought that this took a while, but this analysis made them realize that it is happening in earlier galaxies. This has led experts to say that they really need to start rethinking the speed at which we believe star formation occurs. In our number 5 spot today, we have the star life cycle. Speaking of star formation, information, Webb is showing us both the birth as well as the death of stars. Images produced by Webb of both the Carina Nebula as well as the Southern Ring Nebula are incredible. The Carina Nebula is a star nursery. It is the birthplace for new stars, and the powerful Webb instruments are able to pierce through the gas clouds and show us unbelievable moments in these stars' creations. On the other end is the Southern Ring Nebula, which is produced by a star not unlike the Sun shortly after its demise. By being able to study these different star life stages, we can piece together more about the stories of these stars themselves. In our number 4 spot today, we have Starlight. Back in September of this year, 2022, the James Webb Space Telescope spotted a set of concentric angular rings around a giant but distant star. Of course, we needed to know more, so researchers dove further into the images and found something incredible. A study revealed that these ripples turned out to be puffs of organic dust that were created and then spread across the universe by an odd star system. This might just seem like a cool space occurrence, but this marked the first time researchers were able to find evidence of starlight moving visible matter beyond our solar system, which is absolutely incredible. I mentioned how this star system is odd, and that is because it is made up of 2 stars that orbit each other. In our number 3 spot today, we have Stephen's Quintet. You may be familiar with this term because it was another one of the first photos publicly released from the James Webb Telescope, but it's possible that maybe you didn't know exactly what you were looking at. Stephen's Quintet is a visual group of 5 galaxies, 4 of which form the first compact galaxy group ever discovered. These 4 galaxies will all likely eventually merge with each other, but until that happens, we have these stunning visuals of them all dancing together. Space telescopes like James Webb have provided some insights into some emissions coming from between the galaxy group. It is now believed to be shockwave in the intergalactic gas, which is caused by one galaxy falling into the center of the group at, roughly the speed of several million kilometers per hour. Just space stuff. In our number 2 spot today, we have the DART mission. So I'm sure we all remember earlier this year when NASA's DART mission slammed into an asteroid just to see if we could potentially redirect an asteroid in the future if it were on a collision course with Earth. They tested this planetary defense mechanism and it actually seems to have been largely successful, and among those watching was none other than the James Webb Telescope. Since the mission, information that Webb collected has been sent back to us on Earth, and it is giving us more insight into how to ensure we are using this technology to our advantage and to see how we can improve it. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Cloud discoveries. Speaking of exoplanets, James Webb has observed one that has evidence of silicate-rich clouds. Well, it's actually a brown dwarf that is about 20 times the size of Jupiter. It is called VHS 1256b, and it orbits 2 small red dwarfs and is 72 light years away from Earth. Webb has also used its skills to reveal details in a gas cloud called Doradus 30, which received the nickname Tarantula due to its very spooky appearance. This Tarantula Nebula is located about 161,000 light years away, and it resides in the Large Magellanic Cloud, and I mean aside from our very own Milky Way, it is the brightest star-forming region in our neck of the cosmic woods.